everyone, welcome to Writer of the Week. Today we're here with Veronica Slaughter, author of Have You Seen These Children? Welcome, Veronica. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
So you have a very powerful message that love conquers all and that you can achieve your dreams no matter your past. Can you tell us about your book and why you decided to write it?
Okay, well, I'll start with why I decided to write it. My youngest brother passed away a few years ago, and it dawned on me that I now had lost all my siblings, and I felt that we have a very important story that I told to some people in my life, not many, but I figured if I didn't write it down, it would be lost forever once I'm gone. And then my mother, who recently passed away, she was the last link I had. And I just found it really important to document a certain period of our life, because I really think that what we went through and got through and survived would really help a lot of people. And maybe not in exactly the same situation, but I think we all have a story. I think none of us have the perfect childhood. So mine was far from perfect, but I'm here to tell you that love conquers all. And my story is really about a 4-year period from the time I was 8 to 12, when my siblings, that was Valerie, Veronica, Vance, and Vincent, the 4 of us, we were abducted by our American father from the Philippines. And we lived on the road in the back of a pickup truck mostly, for almost 4 years, running from the law. And because this was 1959, it's really hard to find missing children in 1959 with no internet. And I mean, writing a letter takes forever. So it's the resilience of these 4 children. And I thought it was important too, because I want my siblings, children, and grandchildren to know what amazing people their mother and fathers were, because we banded together and we survived just an amazing journey. And none of them know this story. So I'm hoping that it will give them some insight into their parents, why they do what they do. None of us were perfect parents, and this really shows how far we've come from living in another country and not speaking English to coming to America and being completely lost for 4 years. I mean, it felt like forever years.
And Have You Seen These Children? You write about your early life in the Philippines. Can you tell us more about that?
I was born in Samar, and my sister was born in Cebu. And we grew up with a very extended family in the Philippines. We don't have nursing homes. Parents take care of children, and grandparents take care of children. Everybody kind of supports each other. So I had an incredible young childhood with my relatives, my cousins, my grandparents. We were so loved and adored. And we didn't consider it a third world country, but living in the Philippines is very, very different. Family is everything. Prayer is everything. Trust, honor, definitely honor. So I learned all those things from my mother, who was born in 1923, and sort of before her time. She was an amazing, intelligent woman. I always say she was before her time. She was a small business owner. She raised 4 small children by herself. So she's always been my mentor and the person I looked up to. But she taught us the importance of family, honesty, truth, and believing in God. We were brought up Roman Catholic. Most people in the Philippines were. And I think that's beautiful. But I've chosen to go a little bit of a different direction as I've gotten older.
And you already touched on this briefly. You describe a life-changing event that happened to you and your young siblings, Vincent, Vance, and Valerie, when you were 8 years old. Could you tell us what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I can remember it like it was yesterday. My mother had a coffee shop. It was called Lee's Coffee Shop, and she catered to Americans because my mother, when we were very, very little, like a year old, 2 years old, we lived in America for a short period of time. And so my mother spoke she English well. She was very articulate and obviously very bright. She had a master's degree. And so she catered to a lot of Americans came to our coffee shop. So it was very popular because we were one of the only coffee shops on our street that served brewed coffee instead of the instant Sanka that was very popular in the Philippines. And she also made donuts, and people don't make donuts in the Philippines. My American grandmother had taught her how to make those. So we'd get up on Saturday mornings and we all contributed. Even Vincent, when he was 3 years old, his job was folding napkins, and we'd all get together and get ready to open the shop. This particular Saturday morning, we were, hustling around and of course eating donut holes when we weren't supposed to, and helping my mother. And this man came through the front door, and I hadn't seen my father in over a year. So it was kind of shocking. And he came in and we were kind of hesitated, and Vincent didn't recognize him. And he was carrying presents and flowers, and he ran up to my mother and said, "Oh, it's so good to see you." And I was pretty excited to see him, but probably because he had so many presents in his arms. But he convinced my mother to let him take us to lunch because he hadn't seen us for so long. And I think she was pretty hesitant at first, but it had been a while since he'd seen us. So the place he was taking us was to this hotel down the street. So we went to the supposedly going to the hotel to have lunch, and we were supposed to be back, by noon. So my mother let us go, and we drove right to the airport. And before I knew it, we were on an airplane headed for America. So I went from this perfect life to being petrified, and I was so confused. And I feel like in a matter of 24 hours, I became an adult. I went from being 8 years old to being Vincent's mom, because he would call me mommy, and he was only 3. So that began our journey of living in 7 states and just, literally living on the road, not understanding why, but figured out in time that it was because we were running away from the law, basically. So our life went from perfect to not very perfect.
It sounds incredibly hard, and such young children as well. So I'd love to talk to you about the special bond you have with your mother. It seems the love and stability she gave you early on, combined with your own inner strength, are a large part of what became the framework for making it through life's challenges later on.
Every time I talk about my mother, my voice changes a little bit, because she was a saint, and she was just an amazing person, and I was extremely close to her. So those 4 years away from her were like a 4-year nightmare, and it really bonded me even closer to my mother. The more I had a little rosary that I prayed every night, and I promised God that I'd be good forever, and I would do nothing wrong if he would just bring her back. So my mom, when we disappeared, my mother, actually, she had a nervous breakdown. You can imagine your 4 children there one day and then just gone in one afternoon. But she struggled trying to find us. And because she's not an American citizen, and she was married to my father, but she wasn't legally married to my father, unbeknownst to her. So she couldn't leave the Philippines. So she depended on friends and relatives that she knew in the United States, wrote to congressmen, sent our pictures to newspapers, wherever she thought we might be. And it took her almost 4 years to finally find us. And when she did, I'm 68 years old, and I never let go of her. From the time I held on to her at 12 till the time she passed away in her sleep at almost 96. I was definitely bonded to my mother, and I miss her every day.
What was it like for you and your siblings to finally be reunited with her after so many years? Can you describe that moment?
The moment I laid eyes on her, we walked into some friends of ours' house, and my mother was sitting on the couch, and we called these friends auntie and uncle because in the Philippines, anybody that's takes care of you is called an auntie. So my auntie opens the door, and all I can remember clearly is that I felt like I was having an out of the body experience because I had been praying for almost 4 years, and my father had already told us that my mother, well, back it up, he had got tired of me asking, where's mom? When's mom coming? Where's mom? Where's mom? He finally sat us down and said she was traveling to come and get us, and her plane crashed and she was killed. So I was harboring that too. So I was,
But you didn't believe that, though, on some level, did you?
no, because my father wasn't the best person. He never told the truth, and he was an alcoholic and a drug addict. And I just never believed anything he said. So I convinced myself that he was lying, that he had to be lying because I'd been praying. And if I was praying, God had to have been hearing my prayers and he wouldn't do this to me. So my other siblings believed that my mother had passed away. I just was not ready to let go of that. So when I saw her, it was like seeing an angel. I mean, she was sitting on the couch in her beautiful, dignified self. My mother's tall, she's gorgeous. She had a blue pencil skirt on and a white blouse and these little pearl earrings and these beautiful red lipstick. That's what I remember, her beautiful smile with this red lipstick. And I walked in and I almost felt like I was going to pass out because it was like, no, am I dreaming? Is that her? And so my angel turned out to be my mother. And I ran to her and grabbed her around the waist, and I think I never let go. And my littlest brother, Vincent, at this time was now almost 7. He had no idea who she was. And that was very sad,
She
So
sounds like a very gentle, nurturing person.
calm, gentle, kind, incredibly compassionate. I mean, she taught special ed for 35 years in America. She had to get her credential. Before she could do that, she worked as a cleaning lady because nobody would give her a job because she was overqualified. So
She had a master's degree?
she had a master's degree and she was working on her PhD, but when she was with 4 small children, it was pretty difficult. So yeah, so that's about the 4 years. And then I see my mother, and then I really think that I wouldn't be where I am today if she hadn't instilled in me some really important values. Again, kindness, honesty, family, trust. And it's also made me a better doctor.
Can you tell me about Vincent, Vance, and Valerie?
So we were Valerie, Veronica, Vance, and Vincent. And it's really easy to get us mixed up, but that's the order of my sister being the eldest, then myself, then Vance, and Vincent. We were the Slaughter kids, and we were extremely close. But you can imagine being drug all over the country. It really bonded us because if we didn't stick together, we wouldn't have survived. I mean, we really had to stick together. We were completely there for each other. When Valerie, she passed away from a house fire in 2000. Her house had caught on fire, and I lost my sister. And then my brother Vance got pneumonia and ended up finding out he had liver cancer, and he passed away in 2012. And then my youngest brother Vincent, who was a contractor on Maui, fell off of a roof and broke his neck. And he hung on as a quadriplegic for 5 years, as long as he could. And then he passed away in 2013. So this isn't anything like I thought it was going to be. I really felt we were all going to grow old together, raise our kids together, travel together, have Christmases together, because we were very close. But when my brother Vincent passed away, who I want to say I was the closest to, but only because I took care of him, He was my first child. Um,
What was Vincent like as a person when you were with him growing up?
oh my God. He was so handsome, definitely a ladies' man. He waited a long time to get married, and when he did, he married a wonderful woman and had three amazing children. But growing up, Vincent is he's a room full. So wherever he went, everybody wanted to be around him. I mean, it helps that he was 6 feet tall, long, light brown hair, and just really easy on the eyes. And all my girlfriends, even though we were older than him, they were all in love with my brother, Vincent. He was so charismatic and so kind. He lived on Maui for a long time because I think Maui suited him. People here have such aloha, and that's so much my brother. I mean, he'll stop at the side of the road and help you if you're stuck doing something. I mean, he's just an amazing person. Vance was so different. Vance was much more into like business. He liked business. He liked getting dressed up. I mean, Vincent could wear torn Levi's flip-flops and a cute t-shirt and he'd be happy all day long. Vance liked to get dressed up. He worked in the insurance business. He also had two amazing daughters and he had issues. He had his demons though, but it never kept him from working hard and being he was the most sensitive of all of us. Vance was, I want to say kind because we all were like that because my mother taught us that kindness is the best trait a person can have. So Vance was sweet though. He was sweet and he was shy and he was tall and lanky and he wasn't as tall as Vincent and he was good looking in a different way. He looked more like my mother than my father. And then there was my sister Valerie. She was the eldest and she passed away in 2000 and she was just after her 49th birthday. My sister had an amazing IQ. She read everything. She used to, when we were kids, read the dictionary from cover to cover. She would sit and just read the dictionary. She was so smart. And I remember thinking, I want to be just like her because she always, when we were little, she used words that I'd never heard of before. She had an incredible vocabulary and she also had a photographic memory. So my sister was incredibly bright. I mean, she was so incredibly bright. And at the end of her life, she ended up starting an organization that helped young men and women when they got out of prison, how to fill out forms for employment, how to dress. She helped them with childcare and finding jobs. And, you know, she made a difference in a lot of people's lives. She never went to college. I was the only one that went to college, but she was brilliant. I mean, my brothers were brilliant too. I went to college because all I wanted to do was never be poor again. And I wanted to be a doctor, but they were brilliant. My siblings, and I'm sure that's because my mother, we took after her. My father was pretty bright too, but he didn't use it in a positive way. So
yeah, he had a different kind of intelligence.
yes, my mother said he could sell a dead man life insurance because he could convince anybody to do anything. And because he was so handsome, I mean, my father was very handsome. He could convince anybody to do anything. He could sell you anything. And I saw that with my own eyes during the 4 years that we traipsed around the United States.
So what aspects of your life now and the happiness you found do you attribute to what you learned growing up? They say the finest wines are grown in the most arid, difficult climates and locations. You're a doctor and you built a highly successful chiropractic business that spanned 35 years. Could you tell us about your path to the American dream?
What happened was at an age where I was very easily influenced. For those 4 years, we had nothing. We either lived on the beach, lived in the back of the truck, lived in the basement of a church, and people looked down on me for the first time. I didn't understand that. They would call us the poor kids. I never had any nice clothes. People never wanted to be my friend because I was poor. My best friend in elementary school was the janitor, Mr. Jackson, who was this tall, skinny, Black man that I just held on to, because he was kind to me. He was kind. He treated me with respect. He told me I was smart. And I just remember him saying to me, I used to help him clean classrooms, and he would pay me at the end of the day 10 cents. And this was in Texas. And I remember him saying to me, you don't want to push a broom all your life, Veronica. You're too smart for this. And that stuck with me. So when my mother found us, and I started going to a regular school, because up until then, I didn't hardly go to school at all. I mean, I was 19 years old when I graduated from high school, because I'd missed so much school during those 4 forever years, right? So I decided the only thing that was important, and this was in the 60s, when everybody was, partying and getting high, and not me. All I knew is I wanted to make good grades. I wanted to get some sort of scholarship. I knew my mother couldn't afford to send me to a really good college except the city college. So those 4 years made me put my head down, and I decided I was going to be somebody someday. Unfortunately, I will say I was so driven. I was so driven that I lost touch with my siblings, because I was too busy either working, and in medical school, it takes up every minute of your time. So I wanted the American dream. I was an American citizen. I got to choose between being an American citizen or being a Philippine citizen, and being an American citizen meant everything to me. And I was, one of the happiest days of my life is when I chose being an American citizen. But because I knew in America that if you work hard and really stick to it, you can do anything. I really believed that. And I used to hear Mr. Jackson's voice in my head, and my mother's too. I wanted to be important in a good way. I wanted to be able to make the world better, because I felt like my father made the world a bad place. So that was my driving force when I was in high school and through college and through medical school. And once I got my license in my hand, I just, I just wanted to do everything and be everything. And I neglected a lot of the simple things with my family, because I was working 60 hours a week, because for a very long time, it was all about success, success, success. And at the end of the day, success is really what I have now. And that's peace and calmness and happiness and joy. And it's not, it's not the fancy car and the diamonds and the fancy clothes. I really have come full circle. I went from having nothing to having everything. And now I have what I really want. The problem is I don't have my family anymore. I wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't have made it without my brothers and my sister, and definitely not without my mother. I wouldn't be living here on Maui in this beautiful home, and having a beautiful home in Palm Springs, and being able to travel and do all that if I didn't have the love and support of my family. If I could do it over, though, I took a lot of that for granted as we got older. I wish I could take some of those years back. I wasn't expecting my siblings to all die so young. And I want to be, I'd give anything to be able to tell them how much I love them. Because all three of them, Valerie, Vance, and Vincent, all died pretty suddenly. I mean, Vincent didn't die suddenly, but the accident changed everything. When he fell off that roof, he was no longer, as a quadriplegic, he was the person I loved, but he was no longer the man he was. So I got to spend a lot of quality time with my brother Vincent before he passed away. And I'm telling you, they were the saddest years and the happiest, not years, months. Actually, I spent the last 3 months with him of his life. They were the saddest and happiest months of my life. As a quad, I mean, Vincent, other than talk or move his eyeballs around and get mad at me for bringing him the wrong food or something. You can't move. Someone has to be in the room with him 24/7 because he was paralyzed from the neck down. So as sad as that was, I spent days and nights and days and nights just talking, telling stories, watching movies, hugging and kissing him, because I knew I was losing him, and I was trying to make up for all those years where I wasn't there for him. I was too busy in school and too busy making money. And I honestly, I don't know if I should say this, but I regret that. I really regret being so successful if it meant the cost of my family. And I was very successful, but I would give it all up tomorrow to have my family around me. But you don't know that until you don't have them. And when you don't have them, it's all the would, should, could stuff. And I am very grateful I spent the time I did with my brother and with my mother. I got to spend her last months with her, and she spent them with me here on Maui. And I dream about those days, because every day that went by, I knew it could be my last day with her. And it was bittersweet. I mean, when I'd look at her face, I would stare at her face and try to remember everything about her face. Or when we were having, she loved margaritas. We have margaritas together. I would stare at her and say, is this going to be my last margarita with her? I miss them. I feel like an orphan in a lot of ways. I mean, I have an amazing son, Francis, but he's grown and lives in Northern California, and I would never put some of the sadness I have on him. But I went from having these amazing siblings around me all the time, and my mother, who I spoke to every day, if not twice a day, and now they're all gone.
We have to hold on so tight to those we love. And I know you do have your son, Francis. Where does he live?
He lives in Santa Rosa. He's recently married to a wonderful woman named Elizabeth, and they've been married a little over a year. And he teaches, and he's started his life. It's hard for me to believe that my child is 33 years old, but he's the love of my life, that boy, that man. And
you recently posted on Instagram for Mother's Day a picture of you and your son with the caption, "Being mother to my son Francis is the blessing of my life."
Mm-hmm. And to think I never wanted children. And I always tell Francis, he chose me. Because of my childhood, I didn't really want children. I raised my brother. I am so glad that didn't turn out the way it did, that I have one child, one amazing child, and who's grown to be an amazing man and an amazing husband. So I've been successful. I wanted to be the parent to him that my father was never to me. And I love him the way I've always wanted to be loved, and that's unconditionally.
Tammy Alcoya, president and founder of TLC Writing Retreats, recently reviewed Have You Seen These Children? Writing, Veronica Slaughter's words are spellbinding and paint a vivid picture every step of the way throughout her journey. Once you start her book, I dare you to put it down before the end. This is a story of survival, love, and resilience. Reading it, you will laugh and cry, and afterwards you won't be able to get it out of your head. We're going to finish with you reading an excerpt. Can you set the scene for us?
Sure. I picked a part. This is before, just before my father abducted us. We lived in the Philippines with my mother and our maid Soling, who was my personal maid. And we call them maids. I mean, that it's third generation in our family in the Philippines. It was at a time when house help stayed with you generation after generation. That doesn't happen anymore, but remember, we're talking about the 50s. Anyway, we lived in the coffee shop, above the coffee shop, and the coffee shop was downstairs. So this is during that period. I'm just turned 8. Oh, I wanted to say one other thing. Most of my book is told as my 8-year-old self. This is told from a child's point of view, in a child's voice. So I just wanted you to keep that in mind, that I'm not using big words because I'm 8. Okay. Living above Lee's coffee shop made it easy for us to help Mom, and we got to see her all the time. Our small apartment had everything we needed. There were 2 small bedrooms and a large living room. All the rooms had huge windows with fancy bars on them that were pushed out far enough for us to sit with crossed legs in the windowsill. We'd sit and watch as people rushed by, maids pulling small carts filled with fresh fruits and vegetables, children kicking a rubber ball that was almost flat, the fish lady carrying a big round basket on her head with fish that were still moving. We could see all kinds of things sitting in the window. It was exciting. Once I even saw a man kissing a lady on the lips. We had a round wooden table in the middle of our living room with a pretty tablecloth made of plastic that our American grandmother had sent us. We ate at this table, played games on it, and did our homework on it too. Sometimes Valerie and I would move it so we could sing and dance to the radio or make big circles with our bodies in our hula hoops until we dropped to the floor. We had fun every day. There were 2 beds in one of the bedrooms. Valerie slept with Vance and I slept with Vincent. I was supposed to share a bed with my sister, but Vincent wouldn't leave my side. So that's how it ended up Vincent and me. I loved my little brother so much. The first time I saw my baby brother, I was 5. Right away, I felt he was mine. We were still living in America when my parents brought him home from the hospital. I knew I had a brother before anyone told me he was a boy. When Mom put him down on the bed that first night, she asked me to keep an eye on him. I put my face next to his and whispered that I'd protect him and love him forever because he was my baby. My face was so close to his face that I felt his eyelashes tickling my cheek. His little mouth would push in and out. I loved Vincent more than I loved anything in the whole world. Our beds were covered with bedspreads that my mother made. She let Valerie and me choose the colors. I chose big blue and green flowers, and Valerie chose red and yellow squares. Mine was the prettiest, but we could play checkers on Valerie's bedspread. So Ling slept on the floor between our 2 beds. The purple mat that she slept on wasn't even soft, but she liked it. She always kept an eye on us, even when we were sleeping. Celine didn't use a mosquito net. She said mosquitoes didn't like her. But boy, did they love to bite Vincent. He moved so much at night that sometimes his leg or arm would end up outside the mosquito net. In the morning, his little arm or leg would be covered with itchy red bumps. Celine would rub them with alcohol, and that made the itching stop. She always knew what to do, just like Mom.
Have You Seen These Children is available on Amazon, and you can find the link in the description below, as well as a link to Veronica's website, veronicaslaughter.com. It's been a pleasure talking with you today. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.